Hey guys, welcome back to Anime Gossips. This is my recap for the anime The Wrong Way to Use Healing Magic. The story begins with two popular kids at school walking in the hallways, while everyone gossips about them as they make a great couple together. These two students, who are already the center of attention in the school, walk past the class corridor, discussing how to amend the school rules and regulations, as well as how to fulfill their promise to the student body. Both of them are executives in the student council. Suzune is the president, while Kazuki is the vice president of the student council. Then we see Usato, an ordinary and forgetful high school student. Usato always hopes in his heart for an extraordinary and fantastical life. Now, it's raining outside after the school has closed. It is expected that every student leaves for their home. He goes to pick up his umbrella and prepares to go home, but he can't find his umbrella right there. This shocks him because he knows someone must have taken it, and that's bad luck for him. He spots an umbrella that does not belong to him and resists taking it to avoid any form of trouble for himself. He sits down distressfully beside the umbrella, thinking that if only he could use magic. Usato checks the time and wishes to leave for his residence, but he can't due to the heavy rain, so he has no choice but to wait until the rain stops. Soon after, he gets tired as the rain is not stopping. He shouts loudly out of frustration. Suzune hears his voice and asks him what he is doing there. She asks if he doesn't have an umbrella, as all students are required to leave soon. Usato becomes frightened and sets to leave for home immediately, but Suzune stops him, as sending a student home in the rain would damage the student council's dignity. In the middle of their discussion, the vice president, Kazuki, interrupts and volunteers to lend Usato his spare umbrella, shocking Usato. Suzune asks Kazuki if he knows him, and he reveals that they are classmates. Some thoughts run through Usato's mind because both of them have never communicated in class, but Kazuki knows his name. Well, he concludes that Kazuki must be a nice guy. Kazuki brings out a short umbrella and offers it to Usato. He takes it and thanks him for the favor. Kazuki was confused about whether to call him Usato or Ken. Then Usato told him it would be nice if he calls him Usato. This discussion was held while the three of them were set to leave for home. Suzune stands in between the guys, and she determines to also call him Usato. Usato thinks about the fact that he is being walked home by the two most popular kids at school. While they are having their walk home, Usato tells Kazuki that he doesn't expect him to be as friendly as he is, because he has only seen him talking to the girls in their class. Kazuki says he usually engages with the girls because they start a conversation with him. Usato shares his thoughts about Suzune. He thinks she is less approachable, but Suzune made it clear that she's just an ordinary third-year student. Kazuki tells her she is not ordinary, as she is intelligent, has a good heart, and is beautiful. Usato was bothered about their relationship, and he asks them if they are dating, as everyone at school talks about it. Kazuki explains that they are not dating, and Suzune says they only spend a lot of time together because of their official duty in the student council. Usato happens to be the first to ask them directly if they are dating. Many people in the school think they are dating, but they could not ask them directly. Instead, they spread fake news. So, Suzune compliments him for that. As they move further, Suzune asks Usato what he will be doing after school, but Usato makes it clear that he has not yet thought about it. Suzune has also asked this same question to Kazuki, as she is curious about other people's plans because she doesn't have plans for herself. She has not found what she wants to do because of her ability to instantly complete any goal she sets for herself. She sometimes feels like she doesn't belong to that world. Suzune and Usato are nothing alike, but Usato understands the feelings Suzune has. Suddenly, Kazuki and Suzune start hearing some strange sound, similar to a bell ringing, but Usato could not hear the sound. It becomes louder and louder. After some time, a magical circle appears around them. Usato knows it's a gate to another world. Suzune asks if they will find magic, monsters, and heroes in that world. After some time, the three of them are transported, and they find themselves in an unknown palace with a king and guards. Kazuki wakes worried about others, but Suzune's expression shows that she's very happy to be in an isekai world. The king tells them that suddenly coming there has made them confused, but Kazuki boldly inquires about the identity of the man. The king understands their confusion, so he pleads with them to hear him out. He introduces himself officially. His name is Lloyd Volgast Linger, King of Linger. He explains that the three are being summoned to the Linger Kingdom to serve as heroes. Kazuki is shocked, but Suzune is so excited while Usato is frightened. The king explains that 2 years ago, they were attacked by the demon king of that world. The demon lord invaded the land with his army and they managed to drive him off. But the demon lord's army has been expanding its power. They could not predict the next move of the demon lord, so as a last resort, they summoned an accomplished individual from another world who can confront the demon lord by using a forbidden ritual known as hero summoning. After the long explanation, Suzune is excited, but Kazuki stands and confronts the king, saying that they summoned them without their consent. He requests that they send them back to their world immediately. The king tells him that sending them back won't be possible because the ritual only works in one direction. Kazuki becomes more furious. He explains that he has family back in his world, and so do his two companions, but the king feels sorry and tells him they are desperate. Kazuki steps forward for a fight, but they are surrounded by guards holding spears in their hands. The king moves close to them and bows before them. He promises to find a way to send them back to their world, but before that, they will have to help them, and he addresses them as heroes. Suzune asks the reason they are being addressed as heroes. The king calls on his magician, Welsi, who explains that the hero summoning magic circle is designed to select accomplished individuals. Welsi asks if they heard the bell ringing when they were summoned. That sound indicates that they are heroes. Kazuki remembers vividly that Usato did not hear the sound. Welsi takes them to a room to measure their magical abilities with a crystal ball. Suzune is just happy seeing things like that. Kazuki worries about Usato, but Welsi assures him that he should be able to use magic even though he is not a hero, but that's not Kazuki's concern. He thinks Usato should be angry that he is forced and caught up in the magic circle, but Usato tells him that he is not angry because he figures out that he might find something to do. Kazuki compliments him for being amazing, but Usato is sure that Suzune is way more amazing than himself, and Kazuki agrees with him. Welsi starts the measuring and asks Suzune to place her hand on the crystal ball. She joyfully places her hand, and the crystal ball changes its color. The color indicates an affinity for thunder magic, and she also has ample mana, which makes her more excited. Next is Kazuki. He places his hand on the crystal ball, and it changes to a light color, which represents light magic. He requests to know its usefulness, and then Suzune explains that he will use it to launch laser beams or swords made of light. Welsi explains more about the magic, saying only a few people could use light magic. Light dispels evils against demons, and its power is unparalleled. Next is Usato. Before he places his hand, he wonders if he has any magical power. If the result is positive, then he wishes to help his companions with it. As soon as he places his hand on the crystal ball, it changes its color. It's pretty like an emerald, a soothing color. The magician did not say anything, but rather she drags him out of the room to show him to the king. She gets to the king and explains that the other two heroes have great abilities, but she is there for something more important. The king thought Usato has an affinity for dark magic, but Welsi revealed that the crystal ball turned green. All guards, including the king, are shocked. The king orders that they must send him away from the castle as quickly as possible. Usato thought he was dangerous, so he kept on questioning them. But no one gave him an answer. He asks if there's someone else who possesses the same affinity, and the king says yes. Right after the king answered the question, a lady named Rose, who possesses the same affinity as him, arrives. She is the captain of the kingdom's rescue team. She comes in asking about how the hero summoning goes. King Lloyd could not speak up. He thought Rose would be taking a break, but she claims that she serves the king, so she doesn't need to take a break. Rose moves close to Usato and asks him if he's a hero. Usato becomes scared. The king cuts in and introduces him as a boy brought into the palace by their mistake. Rose asks Usato his name, and they both exchange greetings, even though Usato is fearful. Welsi leads Rose to the room where the heroes are. The king prepares a room for Usato to rest while he thinks about what he'll do with him later. Usato asks the king about his magic that made people unsettled, and mentions what kind of magic is the green color. Rose is still in that palace and asks Usato again to confirm what he just said. She requests the king if she can take Usato with her, but the king disagrees. The king orders Welsi to take Usato away from her. Welsi uses some kind of water magic to quickly get him out of there, but Rose catches up with him and takes him away, promising that she will turn the boy into a full-fledged healing magic user. Welsi goes on to explain the whole situation to his companions, telling them that he is being taken away by the kingdom's rescue team. She informs them about Usato's affinity, which happens to be healing magic, a rare magic affinity that made Rose, the captain of the kingdom's rescue team, take him away to train and turn him into her subordinate. Suzune doesn't find any problem with that, but Welsi finds a problem in it, because Rose's training methods are unorthodox. Rose took Usato to her base. She told him about her affinity and also mentioned that he would be joining the rescue team, becoming her subordinate. Rose summons her boys, and they enter in a terrifying manner. Rose introduces Usato to them, and they all welcome him, but in a way that scares him. They then introduce themselves. These individuals are subordinates of Rose, but they are not healing magic users. There are two other healing magic users in the rescue team, but they work somewhere else. She asks Usato to get prepared for training starting from the next day. Usato doesn't want to get involved with her, but he has no choice. At first, Usato cannot sleep as he contemplates what's going to happen to him. However, we see Rose thinking about the fact that there's a healing magic user from another world. The next morning, Usato wakes up and thinks over and over again about his existence in another world. His friends Suzune and Kazuki come to visit him. They are very worried about him since they has been abducted. Usato explains to his friends about the training he is starting that day, referring to it as hell and stating that he has no choice. He is also interested in being of some use. His friend's training also starts that day. Suzune encourages the others to do their best, and Kazuki thanks Usato, promising to do his best as well. Usato thinks about his friend's feelings about the world, then hopes to grow strong enough someday to support them. Rose comes out of the house after the heroes left. Usato becomes frightened, answering every single question of Rose in fear and trembling. Rose tells him he is free to see whoever he wishes when he is not training. She gives Usato a journal where he can record his daily training regimen and how he feels about it. Usato starts his training that day immediately after having breakfast. On day 1 of the training, Usato finds it easy, not like how Tong and other boys told him it would be hell. That day, he only focuses on sensing his mana. Rose tells him to work on drawing the mana out of his body. Next, he is given a book to read and understand. Usato is shocked that he can understand the language of the book. Rose also tells him he can understand it because the summoned heroes automatically have translation magic cast on them. Eventually, he opens it and is able to read the language of the book. The book contains the Linger Kingdom map, demon territories, and the history of nations, different races, and demons of that world. That day, Usato thinks he can handle the training if it only consists of the activities of that day. On the second day of training, Usato runs a lot, the same as on the third day of training. He is forced to run until his muscles are so sore that he can't move again. Rose scolds him for stopping, and the scolding makes him aware of the magic power she possesses. She heals his sore muscles and tells him to get back to running. On the fourth day, Usato started training with the other members but was left behind. On the 5th and 6th days of training, Usato still keeps running. He runs all day. On the 6th day, he falls to the ground. While on the ground, the light of the healing magic shows up in his hand. On the 7th, 8th, and 9th days, the training becomes harder. Rose kicks him and forces him to run restlessly. On the 9th day, Usato questions the need for healing light. There, he discovers that his healing magic can make him strong effectively. On the 10th day, he is now able to manifest healing magic on demand. He doesn't get tired no matter how much he runs. Usato becomes uneasy because all his training regime is to run around, and he is worried if he will be able to help Suzune and Kazuki. The next day, the training regime changes. He does push-ups as much as possible, and whenever he gets tired, he uses his healing magic to revive himself, then he gets strong again. Rose lets him understand the reason he needs to train his body like that, and that's because he needs to run from the enemy as quickly as possible in battle, and also, he can be able to save his injured allies. That day, Usato is happy because he finishes the training without getting scolded too much. On day 12, Usato ran until the afternoon and then did push-ups until the night. Usato feels lighter as he does training every day. On the 13th day of training, Rose adds weights to the run. It becomes really heavy for him, but he has no choice. On the 14th day, Usato's lunch goes missing. He requests his lunch and finds out that Tong ate it. He becomes angry and chases Tong all day. That day he gets used to the weight because he chases him with the heavy stone bag on him. A week later, Kazuki and Suzune visit him. They are escorted by the Princess of the Kingdom, Princess Celia, and some royal guards. Upon arrival, they find something strange. Usato is forced by Rose to do push-ups with a heavy rock on his back. Rose later adds one more heavy rock to the one on Usato's back. Rose is impressed, seeing that Usato is making use of his healing magic to revive himself. Rose reveals that Usato has finally grown strong to become her kind of man, and he will surely be her right-hand man. Kazuki finds the training brutal, while Suzune is impressed by Usato's muscles that are rapidly growing. Captain Siglis is annoyed. He grabs Rose and complains that she is destroying Usato's future. Rose disagrees with the accusation and claims that she has her own way of doing things. Rose discusses some interesting things about Usato that she likes. After the discussion, Rose allows him to take a break from training to get some lunch and also to attend to his visitors. Captain Siglis sends Usato, Suzune, and Kazuki with Princess Celia from there and waits behind to have some words with Rose. Firstly, the lads discuss Captain Siglis, who happens to be the strongest knight in the Linger Kingdom. He is the one teaching Suzune and Kazuki how to use a sword. Then they move on to exchanging pleasantries. Princess Celia introduces herself and tells Usato to act formal, just exactly the way Kazuki acted when he first met Princess Celia. The princess brought along with her a delicious cake, which they all ate together and enjoyed. While they eat, Kazuki wonders about the training Usato has been having every day, as they saw when they arrived. Usato explains that the training was a little bit light that day. Kazuki explains their training regime. He found the training pretty difficult but reveals that Captain Siglis and Welly always considered their health and well-being while teaching them how to use magic and swords. Kazuki notices Usato's muscles and he is about to talk, but Suzune is too straightforward and gets a quick peek at Usato's abs. Kazuki requests to know how Usato felt about the training. and then Usato explains his training regime. He reveals that he wanted to be useful, even though Rose is scary and brutal. In the beginning, he wanted to run away, but he is not interested in running away anymore. Usato is starting to see the training as fun, and he didn't find life hard in that place. After hearing that, Suzune is amazed by Usato. Usato tells them that someday they are going to fight as heroes, and he wants to help them by then. Suzune gets happy and tells him she counts on him to come and save her if she is in trouble. The discussion is disrupted by Tong, who tells Usato he brought lunch for him. Usato makes a weird face and tells him it's not a favor and how shameless he has to be to bring his lunch. He runs towards him, and they both fight restlessly. Everyone is shocked after seeing that. Kazuki says that it is part of his daily life in that place. Kazuki and others set to leave for the castle. Suzune is able to understand that there's a reason the three of them were summoned to the world together. They need to do their best to be the heroes they are being called. Later that night, Usato had his bath and began to have thoughts about the visit of Suzune and Kazuki, especially the reaction of Suzune when she saw his muscles. Usato also checked his body and realized his body has really changed. He has been healing his body over and over after it was damaged by strenuous training. He is pleased to see the result of all his hard training, but he is worried about the mental fortitude to match his body, which he has built. The next day, Rose throws a luggage at Usato and tells him that they are going out. Other members are amazed to hear it. Rose gets to the gate and tells Thomas, one of the gatekeepers, that she wants to show her subordinate to the outside world. The gate is opened, and Usato is able to see the outside world. As they start their journey outside, Usato questions Rose about the place they are going to, but Rose does not give him any answer. They reach the destination, the forest known as the Darkness of Linger. The forest is infamously teeming with monsters. Rose commands Usato not to come back until he hunts down a grand grizzly. Usato becomes frightened and tells Rose that a blue grizzly only turns into a grand grizzly after living 100 years. He refers to the book he has read previously, which states that a blue grizzly is dangerous, not to talk of a grand grizzly. Rose doesn't listen to his excuse. She believes that Usato should be able to take down a grand grizzly with all the training he has undergone. She lifts up Usato and throws him into the forest. Usato begins to fall from the sky, and he is afraid he will surely not survive. He believes the newspaper will reveal the reason behind his demise at the hands of the captain of the rescue team. Just then, his body begins to glow with healing magic, and he braces for the impact. Usato thanks God when he eventually makes it to the forest alive. As much as he would like to say it, he can only return once he complies with Rose's orders. Usato describes how he envisions defeating a massive grizzly bear, stating that it is only 2 meters tall and should be easy for him to take down. But he is shocked when the big grizzly bear appears behind him and starts to pursue him. The massive grizzly bear is far bigger than he was taught, with enormous fangs and claws. But Usato was so sure of his legs that he started running faster. Suddenly, the massive grizzly bear approached him, and Usato recalled how he had survived that training session in the infernal hell. He starts to think that the grizzly bear is nothing compared to Rose. Usato suddenly stops and turns to face the giant grizzly bear. But 2 more blue grizzly bears appeared to be pursuing him suddenly. He just kept running because he was so afraid. He hears a waterfall in front of him and leaps into it to escape. The grizzly bears returned since they could no longer pursue him. As night approached, he laid his clothes beneath a tree to dry and took food from his bag. While eating, Usato thinks that he would never be able to defeat the enormous grizzly bear. After making a mark with his knife on the tree for the first day, he says he has made it through the day and sleeps in a pile of leaves. On the next day, he marks the tree with his knife once more and decides that he needs to learn more about his enemy. First, he needs to find out where the grand grizzly lives. He finds some scratch marks on a tree. Suddenly, a sound catches his attention, and he prepares to fight, believing the grizzly bear might be nearby, but it turns out it's merely a rabbit that has come out from the bushes. It's actually a monster that looks like a rabbit, and it has a wound on its leg. When Usato noticed it was injured, he used his healing magic to treat the rabbit's wound and told it not to get hurt again. Usato starts to look for the grizzly bears again, but the rabbit follows him. He tells it not to follow as he is looking for a really dangerous monster, so it will be in danger if it follows him. But the rabbit still keeps following him, so he asks if it knows where the grand grizzly is. Usato starts to follow the little rabbit, and he finds where the bears leave. Usato starts to monitor them without being discovered. He notices that they look like they're a family. Suddenly, he sees that the rabbit is in fear, and it seems to be because of a monster is approaching. Usato hears a noise in the darkness, and he is shocked when a giant snake appears. He thinks that he didn't read anything about the snake in the book. He is terrified by its appearance and knows it is dangerous, with blood oozing from every part of it. Usato takes great care to avoid going anywhere near that giant snake. 4 days have passed since Usato saw the enormous snake monster, and he still can't get rid of the uneasy feeling he is experiencing. Instead, he has been observing the grand grizzly bear, which has remained unchanged. making him feel good to watch. However, Usato can only leave by defeating the grand grizzly bear, so he decides to do so the following day. The next day, the rabbit started pulling Usato's shoe to keep him from leaving. He decided to stay there until the rain stopped and asked the rabbit if it is sufficient. When the rain stops, Usato plans to defeat the considerable grizzly bear that day while keeping an eye out for it. He is heading toward their cave when the rabbit hops on his shoulder. Usato informs the rabbit that he must defeat the bear to escape the forest because the bear couldn't stop him. Usato is shocked to discover that the giant grizzly bear has been eliminated when he arrives at its location. But he is also terrified that Rose will beat him for failing to complete his assignment. He notices the bite marks on the giant grizzly bear. It is clear that the snake monster did it, but it is obvious that it didn't do it to eat, it took their lives for fun. The cub emerges from the cave where it is hiding. The cub goes to its mother and tries to wake her up. When Usato sees the cub, he becomes quite emotional. Usato scolds himself, stealing his nerve for nothing as his prey has been taken from him. When Usato notices the cub crying loudly, he tells the cub to wait for him and vows to get revenge for it. Meanwhile, Kazuki and Suzune go to look for Usato. They are told that he has been gone for about 10 days. Kazuki is afraid because that seems a bit long, but Tong says Rose makes all her own decisions. The subordinate then informs Kazuki and Suzune that Rose has also left, and they have no idea why. Kazuki gets worked up when it comes to Usato. He is so worried about Usato that he asks Suzune if she isn't worried about him. Suzune honestly says she is not worried. If Rose is the one making him do this, then it is probably fine by her. Besides, she believes in Usato, Suzune believes Usato will come back soon, and Kazuki believes in him too, so they both leave. Back in the forest, Usato is getting ready for revenge as he makes a spear with his knife. He eats his bread and drinks some water. He asks the rabbit to take him to the snake and tells the rabbit to show him the way and run away afterward. The rabbit begins to give directions of where to find the giant snake. Usato is suddenly startled to see the snake attempting to attack the cub. He sees how dangerous and terrifying the snake looks, but he knows nothing is scarier than Rose, so he attacks the giant monster snake and uses his sharp spear to stab one of its eyes. He intends to attack the giant monster snake from its one side, where it is blinded, but the giant monster snake bites him in the hand that he is holding the knife with. Usato starts healing his hand and stabs the snake inside its mouth. Usato's hand is freed from the snake's mouth, but he realizes that he has been poisoned. This is an unfair fight as the snake is both huge and poisonous. But after being ill with a stomachache from water, Usato learned how to heal himself from the inside out. Usato tries to attack the snake again, but the snake is prepared to attack him with a tail swing. But the bear cub steps in to help him. Usato jumps off from the cub's back and gets on top of the giant snake. He punches the snake on its head with a powerful punch, causing it to fall to the ground. He then stabs the snake's eye again with his sharp spear, and after struggling for some time, the snake is defeated. Usato can't believe that they defeated the giant snake and tells the cub that they got the revenge. Suddenly, the snake gets back up, but Usato can't even move an inch. The cub tries to help him out, but Usato tells it to run away. The snake prepares to attack him, and Usato remembers all the people in his life. He is angry that this entire situation is Rose's fault, and he yells out that she is a violent ogre. Just then, out of nowhere, Rose descends from the sky and stomps on the snake. Usato asks her why she is there, and Rose reveals that the rabbit named Kukuru told her. Kukuru is her pet, and she asks it to watch over Usato. Usato explains that the rabbit showed up injured, and he healed its injury. But Rose tells him that Kukuru is a sucker. Kukuru put on an act to gain his trust, and he just fell for it. She explains that she was nearby and prepared to act if something happened to Usato. Rose intended to interfere as little as possible, not realizing that the monstrous snake might appear. Usato asks Rose if she knew the monster. Rose explains that it was created by the Demon Lord's army. Siglis could not destroy it during the previous invasion, so it fled into the forest. However, Rose didn't anticipate that it would eliminate the Grand Grizzly Bear because they are strong enough that not even an entire unit of elite troops could defeat them. Usato can't believe that she wants a rookie like him to take on a task like that and thinks of her as a witch and a monster. Rose explains that she never expected him to win as the goal is to gain experience fighting something stronger than himself. But as things began to intrigue Usato, so she let him continue to see what would happen. Usato tells her that he almost lost his life, and so the cub came to defend him. Rose noticed that the cub was already showing affection for Usato. Ironically, the cub was alone because it had lost its parents. Rose decided to bring him along. Rose tells the cub to carry Usato, and he asks the cub if it's really alright to carry him. Usato is scared as Rose carries the bear cub and him over her shoulder. Rose then reveals that she heard what he said about her being an ogre. Usato agrees when Rose advises him not to think about sleeping at night. They head home, and Rose tells him he passed this time and qualified. Rose explains to him to stand beside her on the battlefield. He hasn't mastered the basics, but he has got what it takes. He has the ability to withstand the pain, the physical aptitude, and a strong mental state. The other two healers never earned the distinction, so she tells him that he should be proud. Usato gets shocked when she reveals that the demon army will be attacking soon. Elsewhere, the demon lord wonders how the preparation is going to invade the Linger Kingdom. Amilo, the commander of the Third Army, replies that their units have finished preparing for the battle, and they will soon begin their advance. And that's the end of the video. Please comment and let me know which anime recap you'd like to see next. As always, if you liked what you saw, subscribe to the channel. I'll be uploading a lot of videos just like this one, and I'll see you in the next one. Till then, goodbye.